This week on Quality Digest Live, we'll discover tactics for better managing the supply chain.
Plus, a look at the true quality behind brand name products. That and more when we come back.
Today's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is
Creative Safety Supply, leaders in visual safety. Lean, 5S, floor tapes, industrial label printers, and more with free samples upon request. Visit creativesafetysupply.com. Free Skittles with every order.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for January 20th, 2012. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. We had some great feature articles this week in Quality Digest Daily,
absolutely, yep.
if I do say so.
Yep.
If we do say so ourselves. So many, in fact, that we're going to skip right over the news lines in today's show, and we're going to jump right into the features, starting with one from our very own Taryn March. Taryn's article, The Evolution of Electronic Angst.
Electronic angst,
yes, very angsty. Appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Well, angst, yes, of course, is the theme of this particular article. And yeah, angst and electronics kind of go together in today's world for many of us. There's a lot of electronics overload that I think that many of us are dealing with, multitasking, a lot of issues that deal with us.
And the story starts off really great. I mean, it's really talking about, Taryn starts off with a conversation she was having with a friend of hers who was relating an incident of a conversation she was having with a friend who angst over the fact that their child did not have an iPad.
Now that's a conversation that a lot of parents are having. Their kid wants an iPad.
Get a kid an iPad and stuff, but the child was 2 years old.
2.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a bummer. Yeah.
But you know, it brings up a point that people today, children today in particular, really are enmeshed in a world of electronics and enmeshed in a world of connectivity where everything that they want to do, they have to do is connected into media, into the technologies that get us online, keep us online, can deal with all these issues.
Right, and I think parents are feeling this need to make sure that their kids are up and running with technology and how to use technology at an earlier and earlier age. And kind of the question that Taryn brings up in this, and that others have brought up, is this really a good thing? Is it a good thing? Forget about the kids. Is it a good thing for us as adults?
It's probably easier for the kids, actually, than it is for us, because they growing up in it, right. Again, the analogy that was used in Taryn's article that she quotes is that it's like you're like a fish that's inhabiting the water in a pond. The media is all around you, and you grow up with it, so you just do it. You can breathe in that water. But for those of us, and I know you have a strong background in electronics. I don't.
Sure.
So for you, it probably is a little less disruptive.
Well, I wouldn't say disruptive. I've never had a problem with adapting to new technologies and actually look forward to the latest gadgets. And I really get into what's happening in terms of what's happening to computational speed and memory and everything that goes on, because that's my background. But in terms of what Taryn points out in the article, in terms of information overload, I think you don't have to be a geek to experience this problem. I don't think it's a matter of are you an early or late adopter of technology. It really does come down to, are there too many data streams coming into our life to be able to handle properly and to really make us productive? Remember, all these were supposed to be productivity tools.
Right, and no kidding, you're talking about data streams. I mean, I don't know how many, I get 125 emails a day on average.
Right.
You probably get as much, if not more.
Yeah, probably a little bit more.
And I know, there's always this idea that multitasking isn't the most effective way for humans. The human mind isn't been adapted really to multitask in that function.
Right.
But gotcha, if I don't multitask, I'm not going to get any work done. If I wait to complete a project and then get back to those emails that are in my box while I was doing that project,
right.
I'm never going to get to them. They're going to be so far down my inbox, and I'm never going to get to those emails.
Right.
So I have to break away, address the email, and then come back to what I was doing, or else I never will get anything done.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that's being pointed out here is that what's supposed to be a productivity tool is really causing us in some cases to actually literally shut down.
Yes.
That we have so much information going on is that rather than really being productive, we feel overwhelmed and we actually start not dealing with things. We just either deal with them very perfunctorily and just say, I'm just going to make a snap decision because I want to deal, rather than thinking it over as you normally would. I got to get this off my desk, so I deal with it really quickly and get it gone. And that isn't a way to properly run a business, your own business,
life,
or working for somebody else, or your life. Exactly.
Well, what's the answer? Taryn had some interesting solutions.
Well, one solution was, and I can't remember the company that did it. Maybe I can find it real quick here. But they actually suggested, Intel.
Intel, right.
Intel spearheaded, I'll just read from the article here, Intel spearheaded a pilot project that lasted 4 hours of electronic freedom a week to a group of employees. During that time, emails and instant messaging were turned off along with the phones.
Yeah.
So basically what they said, okay, we're going to disconnect these guys from this information for 4 hours a week. And it turned out that there actually was no denying that this was actually helpful. It helped them to actually kind of regroup, get their thoughts back together, and kind of kickstart into the rest of the day.
Right. Taking a walk around the block helps too.
Taking a walk. Well, we do that here, exactly. I mean, Taryn and Laurel often go for a walk, and that really helps them kind of clear their minds and just get disconnected.
Yeah. Great story.
Yep.
Good. Thanks.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks, Taryn.
Oh, yes, but and the next story would be mine as well. Our next story is from Bill Levinson, one of our favorite authors. And I'm sure I've got it here somewhere.
Bill always has an interesting perspective.
Yes, and it always has something to do with Ford.
Yes, and America.
Ford and America.
Yeah.
And this is no difference. In this article, Bill Levinson, the title of the article is "Don't Confuse Brand Names with Quality." And the kicker, quality professionals can help retailers learn how to use high-wage U.S. labor effectively. And his premise is that, retailers are kind of missing the boat here. And they're giving too much power to the buyers.
Yep.
And here's how it's happening. We all know this is true. Whether we avail ourselves to this power or not, it's still a fact. He says, look, many of us know that you can walk into a Walmart or a big box store and find exactly the same garment on their shelves as you can in a boutique store. And the only difference is the boutique store may have a brand name label, one that you would recognize, on the garment. And Walmart is carrying the same garment without a brand name on it.
And there's one other big difference.
Cost.
Price.
Exactly. And that's the deal, is people are willing to pay a high cost for a brand name, and they just because it has the brand name on it. It doesn't necessarily label. Exactly, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's any inherent quality to it. We're paying for the brand, and he says, look, these garments. He speaks of garments in particular, are being made in low-wage countries. It could be China, it could be Malaysia, India, so forth. And he says, when you go to Walmart, let's say, and pay for this garment, you're probably paying closer to what the real worth of the garment is than when you go into a boutique store and pay for the brand name. And he says, here's the kind of the problem with this. He says it's giving too much power to the buyer. Savvy buyers know this, so they're not gonna go. Why? If I know that I can get this same garment at Walmart or Target, I'm going to go there and buy it rather than buy it at some boutique store if I'm savvy. Or I'm going to wait till after Christmas to buy the latest product rather than before Christmas, because I know that there's going to be huge sales after Christmas. And the retailer's still the retailer's not losing any money on the product.
Oh, of course. I mean, the difference between a December 24th price and a December 26th price can often be, 80% in some cases.
And so why do we go to Walmarts and stuff like that? Because we want to get if we're smart, we want to get the good quality product, or at least what we perceive to be a good quality product, because we know we're getting really a brand name product without the tag on it, right? And he says, look, here's the deal. There's no reason why retailers can't work the same way as manufacturers work. He says, think of how a manufacturer works. In the U.S. And elsewhere, manufacturers very often work just in time. He says retailers don't work just in time. They have, because they're getting their products from China or Malaysia, they have to, retailers have to buy based on forecasts. They have to forecast ahead 4 weeks, 8 weeks, because they have to order ahead, because it takes a long time for those products to be shipped over. So they have to look into their crystal ball, and they're pretty good at it, but they're not dead on. They have to look in their crystal ball and guess how much inventory they need based on a holiday that's coming up, or based on what they think is the hottest product. And there's two problems. If their forecasting is on the money, awesome, no problem. If they forecast too short, they're going to tick off their customers, because their customer's going to come into the store expecting to buy the latest product and they've sold out. So you're going to lose a customer. Or they're going to forecast too high and they're going to have excess inventory that they've paid for, and now they're going to have to sell this at a cut price in order to get rid of the inventory to make room for the next forecasted product that's coming in. This is not just in time. Right. Levinson's premise, and he doesn't say how to do it, and you can see it's fraught with problems, but he's saying there's no reason retailers couldn't work the same way. What if a retailer in the United States bought American, and from an American company, American manufacturer, and did it just in time? In other words, was able to determine, I need this amount of product for this week, and could go to their suppliers. Their suppliers would send them the amount of product that they know they need right now, and they would be selling from the shelf as opposed to selling from a warehouse where they've got stockpiled a month's worth of inventory, right? Now, obviously, we can see a lot of problems with this. How does a retailer work with their suppliers? Because the supplier themselves may be not used to working in a just-in-time environment. I mean, this all has to ripple up the supply chain.
Sure. Well, you know, and thanks, Rick. That it's an interesting story, and it connects with something we're going to talk about next, because it's about supply chain, and supply chain is always a concern for us or for our readership. Right. And it's actually the focus of the next article that we're going to talk about right now. We ran an article called "Putting the Quality Back into Supplier Management," and that ran in Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. It was written by Matthew Littlefield, who's presenting a webinar, actually, which you probably know about.
I know all about it.
Titled "Managing the Complex Supply Chain Ecosystem." And that's coming up this Wednesday, January 25th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. The webinar is sponsored by Sparta Systems and is moderated by our very own Dirk Ducharme. And you can register for that webinar by visiting Matt's article, and there's a link right there to the registration page. So, speaking of Matt's article, the key points of the piece, and we're going to get into it in a little bit further here in a moment, is now manufacturing is truly a global undertaking, as we all know, and quality across the supply chain certainly is more important than it ever has been before. Enterprise resource planning, ERP implementations help to streamline these systems, but that comes at a cost. Finance, accounting, procurement are divisions, departments that can greatly benefit from ERP implementations, but quality management now is often neglected. This has led to a rise in the importance of enterprise-wide quality management software. Right. We're going to talk about that now. We're going to take a deeper look at these issues with the author of the article, Matthew Littlefield, who is with us via Skype. I'd like to welcome him. Matt, are you there?
Hey guys, I'm here.
All right.
Awesome.
How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. I particularly liked your first article there. I was feverishly writing down notes and making sure I turned off my cell phone, IM, and email before we started.
Right, exactly.
Well, thanks for doing that. Well, let's talk about supply chain and complexity. How did we get here and with supply chain and the complexity of that, and why is this of ever increasing importance for all of us in the quality world to know about this?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the world we live in, and it goes to some of the other articles that we heard about today, as well as our article. Companies are globalizing, demand's globalizing, and so is the design process. So companies today have to orchestrate a large number of stakeholders in the supply chain. And as companies try and build quality into a way of life, they have to build quality into all of those processes. So I think it has to do with the increasing complexity, the number of players, and what it means to be a manufacturer today.
Well, let's dive a little bit into the actual software itself that we want to talk about a little bit. Quality-oriented software, rather than software that's specifically geared towards procurement or ERP. Why is quality software a better solution for manufacturers in particular who are looking to manage their suppliers?
Well, I think it has to do with the focus of the software architecture and how it's being infused throughout the business process of the company. If you look at a system that might not have been purpose-built for quality, very often it's focused on some other endeavor or some other pain point, right? So maybe it is flowing goods more quickly and efficiently through a supply chain, or maybe it's balancing the books at the end of a quarter, or managing inventory better. That's the primary focus. And often when you implement that software, quality is an afterthought, and it isn't properly addressed with those traditional systems. So this is a pain point that a lot of companies have, that they don't have an easy way or an effective way to manage quality within the four walls of their factory, as well as across their trading partners, both customers as well as suppliers. So we're seeing companies adopt software that helps build that business process and connect those people across those different organizations.
Now are organizations really all that willing to share kind of their metrics with the entire supply chain, or at least with the vendor, between the vendor and the supplier? I mean, seems like that's a little like telling people what you're putting in the sausage. I mean, are they really willing to do that?
Yeah, Dirk, that's a great question. And traditionally, I think the answer would be no. I think a lot of companies out there today, especially manufacturing companies, when they're dealing with often larger, more powerful customers, brand owners or retailers, need to have some buffer. And that buffer sometimes is information. They don't want to share everything about their operation with those larger companies because of fear for being squeezed, either on price or time or quality or whatever that metric might be. But what we're seeing more and more is that the retailers or brand owners understand the pain, and they're trying to be more collaborative with their suppliers. They realize that if they just keep squeezing on their suppliers, the overall system is less efficient. So we're seeing companies, the larger companies, partnering with, in a collaborative way, their suppliers, saying, hey, we have these software tools that will help you improve your business and help us also improve our business. So as long as it's brought about in a collaborative way and built on trust, where the manufacturers or suppliers don't believe they're just going to get squeezed on price or time or quality, we're seeing companies being more and more responsive and receptive to providing more visibility throughout the supply chain.
And when we're talking about these software solutions, we're talking about nuts and bolts solutions here. We're talking about doing root cause analysis, corrective actions, really looking at problems that may crop up and how to deal with them both upstream and downstream. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the article, we talk about enterprise quality management software as a whole. So this is that software that deals with all those things, right? Centralized collection of nonconformances, corrective and preventive actions, managing documents, managing audits. And we're seeing companies now build on top of that platform supplier quality solutions. So these would be specifically portals that suppliers can interact with in a web-based way, as well as collaboration tools and visibility tools. So we're going really beyond just EDI or communicating with finished goods analysis or finished goods testing and submitting those reports in a paper-based way, but really automating that communication to allow for a quicker analysis of the data.
Now, let's talk sectors a little bit. Now, talk about some industries that have specific requirements or needs within, again, different sectors that have different types of supply chains and different needs that can be addressed by some of these solutions.
Yeah, it definitely does differ by industry, so I'm glad you brought that up. In the article we talked about maybe the pharmaceutical industry, right? They were one of the first industries to really focus on enterprise quality management software. Compliance solutions, CAPA solutions, could be batch records for the pharmaceutical manufacturing. But in pharmaceuticals, they haven't been as focused on the broader supply chain. They maybe aren't as advanced in terms of collaborating with their suppliers. Just before this segment, I know you're talking about the electronics industry. In our analysis, that's one of the industries that's most advanced in dealing with suppliers. So the electronics industry has had outsourced manufacturing for a very long time, and they understand that quality is important, so delivering a quality product to the end user. And the only way they can manage that is through managing the quality of suppliers. So that's a pretty advanced industry. Another industry that we're seeing coming up quickly is both consumer products as well as food and beverage. So there's increasing legislation within those industries with the FSMA. And we're seeing companies respond to that by trying to understand the processes as well as the quality of the products that they're getting from suppliers. So I'd say that's one of the up-and-coming industries in the supplier quality management space today.
And Dirk touched on this a little bit a moment ago, the idea of what's in it for the supplier themselves. What does the supplier get out of this by kind of conforming to the needs of the manufacturer themselves?
I see two main benefits to the suppliers. One is building deeper relationships with their customers. So if you have that collaborative environment and you can start building trust with your customers, as one of their preferred suppliers, you can gain, I'd say, mind share and pocket of those customers. So get more business within your customer base. The other thing that we've seen is those customers themselves get access to process improvement tools. So maybe they don't have great internal quality processes, and maybe they do need some help. So sometimes these larger companies can give the tools and expertise to their suppliers to internally improve quality, which only hence improves their profitability as they reduce that cost of poor quality in their own operations.
That's great. Well, hey, Matt, thanks. We could definitely chat about this for a longer time, and as a matter of fact, we're going to.
We're going to exactly.
in about 5 days. We're going to be back at the audience, and folks that can register for that. So thanks, Matt. We're going to again talk about this on Wednesday. That again will be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
And if you want to register for the event, you can do so online. At the end of Matt's article is a link. You can check out Matt's article below the player right here, and you can register for the event, and you'll be able to hear Matt and Dirk rap about this topic for a good long time and really get into it and answer your questions as well. So look out for that on Wednesday. Matt, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a few days.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
awesome.
Matt.
Looking forward to it.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Well, good segment there.
Yeah, no, that was. And it is going to be interesting. It will be fun to be able to delve into this in a lot more detail during the webinar.
And interact again with the user group, because people are going to have questions. This is something that obviously supplier management always of interest and always an important topic.
Yep.
So look for that
Absolutely.
on Wednesday. Thanks.
Okay, let's get to TechCorner today.
TechCorner. All right.
A lot of you, or many of you, or some of us, have probably seen images, video from, let's say, a pharmaceutical packaging plant, or maybe a plant that makes stamped metal parts. And from a pharmaceutical plant, you may see something like this. This is a blister pack with a bunch of pills in it. And you've probably seen them coming down a high-speed line, thousands of pills per minute, or per second even, blister packs full of pills. And you know these are being inspected 100% that the blister pack is sealed properly, that it has a pill in it, that it's the right pill. The pills are being read, being examined for color or for the right markings. And you probably wonder, how in the heck do they do 100% inspection at that high a rate? That's what today's TechCorner is all about. They use one of these. This is a smart camera. This happens to be from Teledyne DALSA. This is called a BOA. You can see it's very small. This is about looks like about 1.5 inch cube with a lens on it. And it's called a smart camera because it's a camera that's smart. Basically, it's a camera. It's a CCD camera. I believe this one is 1024 by 768 or 1280 by 900, 16 by 9.
I think so.
Yeah. And all the smarts for doing the data acquisition, the data comparison, data analysis, and controlling the disposition of the part that's being measured is all in the camera. These cameras run autonomously. Once they're programmed, they don't need to be connected to a computer. They can actually control the line within the guts of the camera itself. So what we're going to look at today is how these cameras are programmed, which kind of shows you some of their capabilities. So as I mentioned, this is a Teledyne DALSA BOA. And now we're going to go over to my screen share. We're going to look at the Inspect Express software, which is what is used to program the camera. This couldn't be any simpler. I'm going to go into the software. First of all, I'm going to tell the software what kind of sensor it is. In this case, I have a little marker up here which tells me this is a single camera. It has, I'm going to control it using an inspection trigger. An inspection trigger is when you have a part coming down the line, hits a particular spot on the conveyance system, sends a trigger to the camera saying the part's in place, a strobe goes off, the camera captures the image, and that's where all the fun begins. So that's going to be a trigger that's going to come into the camera. That's what we're telling that we're going to do. So I'm going to say that's all I need for the setup of the camera in terms of the guts of it. Now we're going to tell it what to examine. So now I'm going to go into my tools section. I'm going to take a picture. Now this is a simulated picture. We don't have the lighting or everything else we need to actually run the camera. It needs proper lighting in order for this to work right. But this is the actual software, and this just happens to be a stored image. So I'm going to get to my proper stored image here. This is the template. This is our golden part. This is the part that we're going to use to program the camera so that it knows what to compare all the other parts to. Couldn't be anything simpler. I've got a number of tools. I've got a distance tool, an angle tool, a circle tool, arc. I've got various types of edge detection, pattern recognition, 2D reader, barcode reader. Anything you can want to measure on 2D can be done through this software. So I'm just going to pick a couple things. I'm going to take the 2D reader. I'm going to draw a box around my 2D barcode. And the software automatically reads the barcode, tells me the value that's in that 2D code, and that is what I'm going to compare against in the future. I think I'm also going to take a read of this barcode up here. That was a 2D code. I'm going to look at a 1D code. So there's a barcode. Same thing. It reads the code, stores that value. I'm going to look for some edges. I want to count the number of slots at the bottom of this part because that's important to me. I'm going to take the edge tool, run it across those slots. It tells me there's 6 slots. That's what I'm going to compare to. And the last thing I'm going to do is take a distance measurement. So I'm going to go from the left side of this part, I'm going to go to the right side of this part, and that's going to be my distance measurement because I want to know the distance apart. Now, once I've selected my features, I can go back in and fine-tune, maybe set upper and lower limits if I don't like the defaults. If I right-click on this distance tool, brings up my distance properties for that image, feature that I selected. I'm going to make this a right angle measurement because I know I'm not going to get the I'm not going to get the proper distance unless I know that I'm going at a right angle from my left side to my right side. So it does that for me automatically. Finally, I want to tell the scale that I'm operating in. Remember, a camera only sees pixels. Camera only knows how many pixels it is. It doesn't really know what the dimension is. So I got to tell it an appropriate dimension. So since I've measured this part, since this is my golden part, I'm going to say, okay, I know that this dimension is 3.251 inches because it's been measured. So that becomes my scale. I program that in, and from now on, the camera knows what my dimensions are. So now I've programmed the features. I've set my scale. Now all I need to do is tell the camera what to do. So the camera, it's captured the image. It's analyzed the image. It will know whether a part is pass or fail. So what now? We've said the camera can control what happens after that. So now we're going to go into the control section. In here, the camera already has some built-in simple digital I/O in and out, and that can control a simple sorting mechanism for pass or fail. What's more important is that it has an Ethernet connection on the back of it and can connect into your actual production system and control PLCs. It can control pretty much any PLC that's out there. So if I bring up my drop-down menu, I can see we can control Modbus or Ethernet IP or Control Logics or GE FANUC, Modman, Melsec, or Omron. So if you're a manufacturer and you have automation, you have one of those PLCs. Or you're adaptable to them. So we select our PLC and we run we program our script for that PLC so that depending on the outcome of the comparison test after it captures an image, it knows how to dispose of that part, what it does for a pass, what it does for a fail, if it wants to recycle a part. And that's about it. The camera is now programmed. It can be disconnected from the computer, put on the line. It is now fully autonomous.
Standalone.
So, but if you did have a computer connected to it, what would it look like? Well, we can run this part now. So I can step through my parts here, and if I do that, you can see at the bottom we get big pass fails. So let's look at our first part. Obviously, it's going to pass because it was our golden part.
Right.
If I go to our next part, this one fails because it has the wrong number of slots across the bottom. Our next part passes, our next part fails because the distance across the part is wrong. So all of this data, all of this is being captured within the camera. So what this means is that you can program a group of cameras with one computer, program multiple cameras for multiple lines, looking at multiple parts, tell the camera exactly how you want it to control the line, put that camera on the line, disconnect it from the computer, and the camera itself, this little goodie right here, is actually controlling the line or that section of the line. That's why they call it a smart camera, and that is how they do high-speed vision inspection on a very high-speed line. By the way, these things measure in milliseconds, so it's very, very quick.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. A lot of power packed into a very small package there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah. Talk about more information overload.
Oh, that's great. But definitely in a good way. No,
definitely in a good way.
That's great. Well, thanks, Dirk. Great. Yeah. As usual, a well presented TechCorner. Yep. And thank you to DALSA, Teledyne DALSA, for sending that over to us.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of another little addition to TechCorner, we had an email.
Oh, that's right. We had
an email, if I can get to it here.
Well, we had, yes. Well, this is you want to check this out. We had an email from a reader, and you're going to read it right now.
This was very cool. This is the kind of stuff we like to do. A couple weeks ago, we got an email from a reader, Randy Hine. And Randy wrote in, I am looking for information on how to evaluate touch trigger probes for accuracy. I have tried searching on the web and have found no information covering this subject. Until he came to us, of course.
Of course.
Okay. Our problem is once a touch probe and magnetic module are installed, they may wear out and or be damaged by collisions. And from this point, he outlined some specific things, some specific information he wanted.
And said, help.
Help. So we sent it out to a number of our advertisers that we know kind of deal in this realm. Very quickly got a response back from Hexagon, who wrote a full-on article, and the link to it is below the player down there. The link to it is below the player, which actually was a direct response to Randy's questions, which really addressed, I hope, I haven't heard back from him yet, but I hope really addressed his questions. But it was written specifically for this reader, but of value to our readers in general.
Well, it brings up a point, and it's one that we always want to make sure that you know out there, that we are listening to you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear about what you want to see in Quality Digest, either in QDD and our daily newsletter, or on this show on QDL. So write us and let us know what you're looking about. If you have questions or comments or other just things that you need to know about. Hey, we have a lot of resources in-house, both as well as with our marketing partners out there. So don't hesitate to drop us a line and let us know what you're looking for. Well, thanks, Dirk.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dirk. Thanks, Randy. And thanks, Hexagon. And before I wrap up, I got one more thank you to author for today's show. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's show, Creative Safety Supply, the leaders in visual safety. Creative Safety Supply is your source for lean, 5S, floor tapes, industrial label printers, and more. Free samples upon request, and get this, free Skittles with every order. Now, who doesn't love Skittles? Hey.
I'd order some labels just to get the Skittles.
There you go. So visit www.creativesafetysupply.com to learn more. There's a banner ad right below the player here, so click on that and check it out.
Yep. And next week, one of the cool articles coming up next week.
Yes.
We've all heard of additive manufacturing and maybe 3D printing. And we've talked about 3D printing here. You probably heard about it. Next week, a story on 3D printing a house.
Wow.
An entire house. And this isn't just in somebody's head, oh yeah, maybe we could do this. This guy in Southern California, I believe USC, I believe, it's a university, actually has a working model that is very close to being to the point where it could 3D print a house. So you don't want to miss that article.
We are going to look forward to that next week in Quality Digest Daily. And of course, we'll be back next Friday with the next episode of Quality Digest Live, so check that out too. Yep. Well, that's our show. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Been fun. See you.
Bye.
Bye.